Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today will be an interesting one. I often try to do some histories of fishing companies, fishing tackle, fishing reels, and the like. Today is going to be one of those days, and a lot of times I'm asked, what's my inspiration? Well, that's a good question. Oftentimes somebody will ask me to do one. Sometimes somebody will send me some information. A fellow sent me a book on the history of gladding, and I was happy to do that. I purchased a book from Orca on the history of Ocean City reels. I did one on that. Well, this motivation was a little bit different. I was on my way down to Ocean City in Maryland. Ocean City, for those of you that may be aware of it, is mid-Atlantic coast. It's right on the Delmarva Peninsula. Delmarva meaning Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. It's the eastern shore of Maryland. And it's pretty well known in the sport fishing community. They do a lot of tournaments down there, particularly like white marlin tournaments and the like. I wasn't down there for that. I was just going down there on pleasure, driving from New Jersey. And interestingly enough, I stumbled across Fenwick Island. Now, Fenwick Island, you'll notice in this picture, the map might be a little bit tough. It's right on the border of Maryland and Delaware. It's a very small community. I think the population may only be about 300, and from what I can guess, it's only several blocks long. It's a little island, but that made me think, I wonder where the Fenwick rods originated, and did they take their name from Fenwick Island or something else? And that got me to thinking. I am a fan of the Fenwick rods. I have quite a few. Here's one. This is a 5-footer. I use this for fresh water. It's got the eagle on it. That's probably the easiest way to identify the Fenwick brand. And they always had this kind of chocolate, milk chocolate kind of a color to a lot of their rod and reel blanks. So I thought, well, gee, let's learn a little bit more about it and maybe pass that along to my community. So let's go do that then. So if you like these kinds of videos, I would encourage you to subscribe. And if you want to see more, please hit the notification button. If you like the art of reel repair, if you like learning a little bit about the history of fishing and fishing tackle companies and techniques and the like, well, that's kind of what I cover on the channel, and I would encourage you to subscribe and support my channel in that way. Well, back to this. Believe it or not, the Fenwick Company started about as far away from Fenwick Island in Delaware as it could possibly be. It actually started in Seattle, Washington. And I don't think on the continental United States anyway that there's very many places further apart than Seattle, Washington, and Fenwick Island on the East Coast, West Coast. So there you go. It started by a group of returning GIs that were businessmen. It started in Seattle. They were avid fly fishermen, and they kind of were looking to develop fishing rods and use the technology that was kind of developed in the war and see if they couldn't perfect a rod that would be ideal for the fishing that they were doing. And right around this time, fiberglass started to become a thing, if you will, right? We got away from the bamboo, started getting into fiberglass, and Washington was actually a hot spot for the development of the rods at that time. There's a fellow out there named Don Green. He had a company out there. It was called Grizzly Blank Company, and they became renowned for developing fishing rod blanks. Same in that area, you found Lama Glass and a lot of other developers out there. Sort of a hotbed, if you will, for that fiberglass technology. And in 1952, those businessmen formed the fishing rod company that would ultimately become Fenwick. Well, how did it become Fenwick? After they designed their rods, they needed a place to build them, and they found a place, actually a garage in near Kent, Washington, and right on the shores of Lake Fenwick. So I wasn't far off. Fenwick Island, Lake Fenwick, took their name from bodies of water. It was near Kent, and when they decided on the Fenwick name, well, it stuck all these years later. So from 1952 on, about 70 years now, Fenwick has been named for that initial site where they did the manufacturing and the production of their rods. Where am I learning this? Well, if you just kind of put in Fenwick rod history, what you'll find is that Fenwick now belongs to Pure Fishing, and Pure Fishing has a little history of the companies that they've acquired over time, and you can find out a lot more there. Well, the iteration of the company, back to them for just a moment then. So Fenwick in the 1960s started developing fishing rods for the bass tournament industry. That's really where they developed their name. So they went from fly fishing, started producing the bass fishing. There was a fellow there named Phil Clark. Their company purchased Fenwick in the 60s, and Phil was a marketeer, decided to latch on to the bass tournament scene, started developing the rods, probably some of them just like the one I showed you there, and to specialize then. So they had fly rods, they had saltwater rods, they had bass rods, and they started developing them for various types of environments. So as I mentioned, in 67 or 68, they acquired that Grizzly Blank Company by Don Green. Continued to develop. The best rod that they did was a rod called the Lunker Stick. And then in the 1970s, again, we saw with fishing reels, and we talked about that quite a bit, where fishing reels went from a metal jacketed reel like this to a graphite reel. Well, the rods did the same thing. They moved on from fiberglass to graphite, and Fenwick was one of the first of the fishing rod companies to develop and introduce an all graphite fishing rod. I believe that was in 1973. Well, that changed the world. That changed how you fish, right? You got flipping rods, you got different types of approaches, parabolic rods and things like that that you just couldn't do with fiberglass. That kind of changed the whole tournament scene. It upped the level of what a quality or a high quality rod was. And Fenwick at one point owned about 50% of the marketplace for fishing rods of their era. And again, having that broad-based coverage, being fly, being freshwater, being bass, being saltwater, enabled you to do that. And I also did some rods, and I haven't been able to get all of them, but I believe the Sears rod, among others, was a Fenwick manufactured rod. So they had competition out there, of course. They had True Temper. They had Shakespeare with the Wonder Rod. They had, on a higher level, they had the St. Croix and the like. But for the most part, they had the market share there, and they were able to do quite a bit with it. Gladding would be another one that was into that kind of a rod structure, South Bend. So the rods, the rods that Fenwick produced, higher level, fishing specific to the types that you did, and gained a renown and reputation. Well, I mentioned earlier, today they're owned by Pure Fishing. They continue to have a passion for building fishing rods. They are still revered from the angler community, and they're still a nice product that if you have the opportunity to find and fish, I think you'll enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to them. So a little bit more about the history. Just so you know, it was not Fenwick Island where I passed through, but it was Kent, Washington, on the shores of Lake Fenwick. And those are how the name got here, and that story is a little bit about their history. Hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.